They were literally the world's first known civilization. Down in the cradle of Mesopotamia, all of political history really kicks off with them, the Sumerians. So let's dive into their incredible story, from their super mysterious origins to the legacy they left for, well, all of us.
So that's the big question we're tackling, right? We're going to piece together the evidence to figure out how humanity's first great society rose up from the swampy plains and why, after thousands of years, it just vanished from the map.
Okay, so how does a civilization even get started? Well, it all begins with the land. And for the Sumerians, their home was a place of extreme challenges, which demanded even more extreme solutions.
I want you to picture this: southern Mesopotamia. It's a land of huge swamps, crazy hot summers, and dry, arid deserts, all squeezed between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This was not an easy place to call home. You couldn't just be a lone wolf out here. Survival meant people had to band together and get organized.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Civilization wasn't some happy accident. It was a necessity. The rivers flooded like crazy, so they had to build canals. The land was bone dry, so they had to invent irrigation. To get enough food for everyone, they had to farm collectively. This constant problem solving, this need to work together, is what literally pushed them into building a society.
But here's a twist. The Sumerians weren't the first people there. The groundwork for all this was actually laid by an indigenous group we call the Ubaid people. They were the ones who set up the first settlements and really started to tame this wild land.
And that leads us to our first huge mystery. Sometime around the 4th millennium BC, a new group of people shows up, the Sumerians. But where on earth did they come from? Nobody knows for sure. Their language is what we call an isolate, meaning it's not related to any other known language family. Their origins are still one of history's biggest puzzles.
But wherever they came from, man, their arrival was like throwing gasoline on a fire. This fusion of the newcomers with the local people kicked off one of the most creative bursts in all of human history.
So you get this incredible cultural mix, and it's just explosive. All of a sudden, you see the rise of the world's first true cities, places like Uruk, Kish, and Lagash. And these weren't just big towns, they were powerful, independent city-states, each run by a priest-king who was seen as the manager of the city's patron god on Earth.
Now, as these cities get bigger, you can imagine things get complicated, right? The rulers needed a way to track all the trade, manage food surpluses, and just run the whole show. And their solution, cooked up in the city of Uruk, would change the world forever. They invented writing.
And it didn't just appear out of thin air. It was a whole evolution. It started with simple pictures of things, pictograms. Over time, those pictures got more abstract, more stylized, and finally, they landed on cuneiform, a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay. It was so versatile it could represent not just things, but sounds and complex ideas too.
Okay, so we've got cities, we've got writing. You know what comes next, right? Power. And with power comes the first kings, legendary heroes, and, yup, the first wars.
The ancient Sumerian king lists are this amazing blend of myth and real history. You've got these legendary rulers like Etana of Kish, who is said to have united the lands. But then you get guys like Enmi-Barageddon, who we've actually found archaeological proof for. He fought what might be the very first recorded war in history. And of course, there's Gilgamesh of Uruk, a king so legendary he became the hero of the world's first great epic poem. And this right here, this is the key. It's their fatal flaw. Despite sharing a culture and religion, the Sumerians were almost never one unified people. The city-states were fiercely independent and always fighting each other. This constant rivalry between the big players, Kish, Uruk, and just drained their strength and left them open to attack.
But even with all that fighting, you get these incredible flashes of brilliance. In the city of Lagash, this guy named Urugakina came to power, overthrew a corrupt bunch of rulers, and brought in the first known regal reforms in history. He was fighting for justice, trying to stamp out corruption, a real revolutionary for his time.
This whole era of warring city-states was bound to lead to something bigger, the idea of an empire. But this new path would lead to incredible power, a devastating collapse, and then one last spectacular golden age.
First on the scene, you have Lugal-Zaji-Si. He was a Sumerian king who actually managed to unite all the Sumerian cities for the first time. But his victory lap didn't last long, because up from the north comes this absolute powerhouse, a non-Sumerian named Sargon of Akkad. Around 2334 BC, Sargon crushes Lugal-Zaji-Si and doesn't just unite Sumer, he conquers it,
creating the world's very first empire.
Sargon's Akkadian Empire was a big deal for over a century. But here's the thing about empires built on conquests. They're often unstable. It was constantly dealing with Sumerian rebellions, and eventually the whole thing crumbled under that pressure, plus a massive invasion by mountain tribes called the Gudi.
But you can't keep a good civilization down, right? After the Gudi were kicked out, the Sumerians had this amazing comeback. This period, called the Third Dynasty of Ur, was their final golden age, a century of peace, wealth, and incredible art and architecture. It was a true Sumerian renaissance.
And leading this charge was King Ur-Nammu. Around 2100 BC, he does something incredible. He doesn't just rebuild the cities, he gives the world the oldest complete law code we've ever found. And get this, it's way older than Hammurabi's more famous code. He was establishing the idea of justice as the bedrock of his kingdom.
But golden ages rarely last forever. New people were moving into the region, old enemies were stirring, and the stage was being set for the final, tragic act of Sumerian history.
The kingdom of Ur was basically caught in a giant vice. From the west, you had waves of Amorite peoples migrating in. From the east, their ancient enemies, the Elamites, were attacking again. The pressure was just too much, and in 1940 BC, the Elamites stormed the capital city of Ur and burned it to the ground, ending the dynasty.
With Ur in ruins, the old habits kicked back in. The Sumerian world shattered again, with the cities of Isin and Larsa fighting each other for control. But while they were busy wearing each other out, a city that had been a minor player up north was quietly growing stronger and stronger. That city was Babylon.
And that's when their king, the brilliant Hammurabi, makes his move. Around 1760 BC, the Babylonians swept south and conquered the last of the Sumerian lands. And just like that, Sumerian political independence was over. Done. Forever. Their civilization was swallowed whole by the new Babylonian Empire. So, is that it? Is that the end of the Sumerians? Well, yes and no. As a people, as a political power, they were gone. But their ideas, their inventions, man, they became the foundation for everything that came next. The very idea of a city, of written laws, of literature, of tracking the stars, all of it. Those are Sumerian gifts to the world.
So the real takeaway here isn't about a civilization that died. It's about ideas that are immortal. Their cities are dust, their language is silent, but their way of thinking about how to organize society, how to record our thoughts, how to tell stories, that's all still with us. Their civilization may have ended, but its echo is absolutely everywhere. The only question is, where do you see it?